The night was supposed to be a celebration, a night Marco DE Santos, the renowned chef at a prestigious restaurant in downtown, had been eagerly anticipating. He'd finally secured the promotion he'd been striving for, and his restaurant, Le Jardin, was poised to receive a coveted Michelin star. He was on top of the world, his dreams within reach. The kitchen was alive with the hum of anticipation, the orders stacking up as his team worked tirelessly to impress the critics. Marco was in his element, overseeing every dish, every detail with the precision he was known for. He had earned this moment, the culmination of years of hard work. Yet that night, Marco made a decision that would alter the course of his life and end it forever. The phone rang in the dead of night. Marco, who had just completed a dinner service, wiped his brow and reached for the phone, not expecting anything urgent. The screen flashed with an unknown number. His first instinct was to ignore it, but something stopped him. He had been on edge lately ever since the news of his promotion broke. There were so many eyes on him now, and he couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. "Marco!" a voice gasped on the other end. It was his wife, Clara. "You have to come home now. Something's happened." Marco's heart sank as his mind raced. He had only just left the restaurant. Was there an emergency with Lucia, their young daughter? Was Clara sick? Before he could respond, the line went dead. The sudden silence left him breathless. He called Clara back, his fingers trembling. There was no answer. His anxiety spiked, and his gut told him something was terribly wrong. Without a second thought, Marco rushed out of the kitchen, throwing his jacket on. He didn't bother telling anyone where he was going. His mind was a blur. He needed to get home. The streets felt longer than usual as he drove. Each second stretched out. Each red light seemed like an eternity. He couldn't shake the feeling of dread crawling up his spine. He tried calling Clara again. Still no answer. When he pulled into the driveway of their suburban home, he saw the lights were off inside. That was odd. Clara always left the porch light on when she was home. Marco's heart pounded in his chest as he quickly exited the car. His footsteps were frantic as he reached for the door. He fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking. The door opened with a creak and Marco stepped inside. The house was eerily quiet, too quiet. The air felt heavy, thick with tension. His heart began to race as he called out for Clara. "Clara? Lucia?" His voice echoed through the hallway. He didn't get a response. He moved further into the house, his steps growing more hurried with each passing moment. The silence was deafening, and then he heard it. A faint sound, something that chilled him to his core. The unmistakable sound of his wife's sobs. Marco's heart dropped as he rushed toward the kitchen. Clara was sitting at the table, her face buried in her hands. Her sobs were desperate, ragged. She was shaking uncontrollably. Marco's breath caught in his throat as he gently placed a hand on her shoulder, trying to steady her. "Clara, what's going on? What happened?" Marco's voice was shaky, his worry evident. She looked up at him, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It's Lucia. Marco, she's gone." Marco froze, his body turning cold. His mind couldn't process what he had just heard. "What? What do you mean, gone? Where is she?" Clara's eyes darted to the hallway. Marco's pulse quickened as he followed her gaze, his heart pounding in his chest. He turned toward the hallway, instinctively moving toward Lucia's bedroom. But the sight that greeted him stopped him in his tracks. There, lying in a pool of blood, was Lucia, his beautiful, vibrant little girl. The sight was so horrific, so unreal, that Marco could hardly comprehend it. His vision blurred as his mind struggled to make sense of the scene before him. She was just a child. How could this happen? "Lucia," Marco whispered, his voice trembling as he kneeled beside her. He checked for a pulse, his fingers shaking as he desperately searched. But there was nothing. Clara's voice came from behind him, breaking through the haze of disbelief. "It was him, Marco. It was your brother. I saw him. I saw him with her." Her words barely made sense, but they pierced through Marco's fog of shock. "Alex?" Marco's voice cracked as he stood up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You're saying Alex did this?" Clara nodded, her face contorted with grief. "Yes. He was here, in the house. I saw him. He, he... Her words failed her as the sobs overtook her once again. Marco's mind was spinning. Alex, his brother, his flesh and blood, the man he had grown up with. How could this be true? How could his brother be capable of such an atrocity? The thought was so unfathomable that it felt like a nightmare. Without another word, Marco reached for his phone and dialed 911, his hands trembling. The call was brief, urgent. My daughter? She's been murdered. It's my brother. He's the one who did this. As Marco spoke to the dispatcher, his thoughts were a whirlwind. What had led to this? How had things gotten so out of hand? His mind raced through the last few months, his brother Alex's recent behavior, the tensions between Clara and Alex, but nothing had prepared him for this. The police arrived minutes later. Marco could barely focus on the officers as they entered the house, his mind still reeling from the shocking discovery. Detective Miller, a seasoned investigator, took charge of the situation. She was calm, composed, nothing like the frantic chaos Marco felt inside. She surveyed the crime scene with a steady gaze, her eyes scanning every detail. Marco, she said, her voice professional but firm, I need you to tell me everything. What happened here? Marco struggled to speak, his throat tight with emotion. I don't know. Clara said she saw Alex with Lucia, but I can't believe it. I need to find him. Detective Miller nodded, her eyes sharp as she turned toward Clara. Clara, we need to know everything you can remember. We need to piece together the events of the night. Clara's eyes were distant as she recounted the events leading up to the murder. The story was fragmented, broken up by sobs and pauses. It didn't make sense. None of it did. But as Detective Miller listened, it became clear that there were more secrets than just the murder. Secrets that were buried deep within the family. As the investigation continued, more truths began to emerge. Unspoken tensions between Clara and Alex, the history of betrayal, jealousy, and lies. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, but the picture was far darker than anyone could have imagined. Clara's relationship with Alex was far more complicated than Marco had ever known. And there were other signs. Things Marco had missed in his years of close proximity to his brother. Alex's behavior had been erratic in recent months, but Marco had chalked it up to stress, to life's pressures. Now it seemed like the warning signs had been there all along. As the investigation deepened, Clara's role in the events of that night became more suspicious. Detective Miller pressed her harder. Clara, you said you saw Alex with Lucia, but why didn't you call the police sooner? Why didn't you stop him? Clara's face twisted with guilt. I don't know. I was too scared. I thought I could handle it. I never imagined it would come to this. But as the truth slowly unraveled, it became clear. Clara wasn't just a victim of Alex's rage. She had been involved in a web of deceit and manipulation that Marco had never known. And Alex had been her pawn, a pawn in a twisted game of family secrets and repressed emotions. The night Marco learned the truth about his brother, his wife, and his family was the night everything changed. The investigation took a turn no one expected, leading to the shocking revelation that Clara had been hiding much more than Marco ever could have imagined. As the detectives closed in on the final pieces of the case, Marco stood in the wreckage of his life. His world had been shattered, his family torn apart by a deadly combination of jealousy, betrayal, and fear. The murder of his daughter was just the beginning. The final twist in the investigation came when Alex was found, alive but broken, hiding in the woods outside town. His confession, when it came, was a chilling mix of fear and regret. But the damage had been done. Clara was arrested, and Alex was left to face the consequences of his actions. Marco's heart broke as he realized the depth of the betrayal. His family, his blood, had been the ones to bring this tragedy to his doorstep. The pain of losing Lucia was unbearable, but the pain of losing his family, of realizing that the people he trusted most had been the ones to destroy everything, was even worse. In the end, the truth was clear. It wasn't just a murder. It was a family destroyed by secrets, lies, and betrayal. A fatal decision, a decision that would haunt Marco for the rest of his life.